Hey, I just made a video about interest rates, exploring 4 different interest rate scenarios, going off the crazy possibility that we might actually be seeing as low as 2% or lower interest rates in the coming months and years. If the Fed plays out like they always have done in past recessions, we can expect that the Fed's going to drop interest rates anywhere from 2 to 4%. And when we are currently sitting at around 2 to 2.25% for the federal funds rate target, that doesn't leave us a whole lot of room for dropping down much lower until we hit negative interest rate territory. So how would this play out if we were really to see some crazy low interest rates like that? Well, watch this video and find out. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at some different scenarios for interest rates and see just kind of what sort of different ways things could play out. So let's just go ahead and assume that we're looking at 600,000 median home price just to kind of stay middle of the road. And let's also assume that that we have a conventional 10% down loan, so 90% financing, and that comes to a 540 loan balance. Let's go ahead and put that in loan balance. Let's assume a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Let's assume that it's going to be paid off at the end, so fully amortized, and let's start with a 4.94% interest rate. Let's go and look at, for example, 4.94 is about the highest we've seen in the last couple of years. So let's just go ahead and use that. We're just going to compare some different benchmarks to get an idea as to how that impacts everything. So 4.94, and then let's calculate for payment. So this is just principal and interest, but 28.79. Let's go ahead and go to amortization. Wrong one. Let's go to amortization and check out this schedule. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this curve right here, this crossover, in a minute, but essentially this number right here, 193, and the crossover between the red and the blue line is when your interest payment, the portion of your monthly payment going towards interest, begins to actually be less than the portion of the payment going towards principal. So you can see that this is 193 payments in. It's over the halfway point of the loan before the majority of your payment every single month is actually going towards paying down your principal balance. That means that up until then, the majority of your money is being used to pay for the cost of that debt, which is interest. So let's go ahead and we're going to compare a few different stats or a few different benchmarks. We're going to look at the total payments after 5 years, the interest paid after 5 years, and the total payments at the end of the full 30-year period were you to actually go that long. So if we look here, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to change every single one of these to as if we're getting the loan in December. That would make the first payment in January, and that way we can just get a nice, clear, concise at the end of 5 years every single time. So if we look at the end of 60 payments, you can see the cumulative total for interest is $128,000, and the principal balance, where you just sell the property and pay off the loan at that time, would be $172,744. Now let's go ahead and look at the end of the term as well. If you were to hold on to this for the entire period, you would have paid a total of $1.036 million in payments, out of which $496,463 would have been strictly towards interest. Okay, now let's take a look at a 3.6% rate. That's about where we are currently at the end of August or middle of August of 2019. And if we plug in 3.6, we keep all the other calculations the same. We calculate for payment. We've already dropped the payment from $28.79 down to $24.55. Let's go ahead and amortize this as well. And once again, just so we're comparing apples to apples, let's compare as if we're starting December 1st. Once again, let's start looking at this. So the crossover here already has gone significantly further to the left. That means much sooner in your payment cycles do you begin to put more of your payment towards principal, paying down principal, than you do towards interest. And of course, that's incredibly important because whenever you want to sell, your principal balance is really going to determine the amount of equity you have in the property, right? So the faster you can pay that down, the larger the portion of your payment going towards that, the better it is for your ultimate equity situation. So let's go ahead and look at after 60 payments, you have paid $147,000 total in payments. Now that's down $25,000 from $172,000 at 4.94, and your interest paid is $92,497, and that's actually down from $128,000 same 5-year period from the 4.94 interest rate. Okay, your balance here is also $485,000. Down just over $10,000 from previously. So that means not only did you pay $25,000 less in payments over that 5-year period, but you also accumulated an additional $10,000 in equity based on the balance. And if we look at the end of the 30-year period, were you to hold on to this loan the entire duration, you would see that your total payments have been only $883,000 as opposed to 1.036, and the interest portion is $343,000 as opposed to $496,000 on the 4.94 version. Now, from here on out, let's just go ahead and look at the 5-year, because that's a very short time period, and if you can see significant returns and benefits just in 5 years based on some of these calculations, and I think that's going to make the point we're trying to make. So let's go ahead and look at a 2.75 interest rate. Now, this might sound a little bit crazy, but if you watch some of my other videos, especially looking at what's going on with interest rates and how the Fed already, as of August 2019, has preemptively dropped rates by 25 basis points for the federal funds rate, kind of as a premonition to the potential slowdown that we are already beginning to see in the global economy as well as the national economy. What's going to happen when we hit any sort of recession? Now, the yield curve just inverted, right? The Treasury bonds yields from the 10-year to the 2-year just inverted, which has long in the past been a telltale sign or prediction of a recession, usually followed 12 to 24 months later. And if that's going to happen, historically speaking, we always can expect that the Fed is going to drop rates between 2 to 4%. Now, if we're already close to 2% right now for the federal funds rate, that leaves only 2% before we are down to zero. And anything more than that is going to lead us into negative territory. But you might say that's absolutely absurd. That's not going to happen. Well, if you check this out, look at this. Do you realize that Japan has had fixed rate interest rates for 35-year loans, averaging around 1.3 or 1.228 in the case of internet banks, 1.228 fixed rate 35-year amortized bank loans in Japan. That's just absurd. But the fact is that they actually have negative federal funds rates out there. It's actually about, I believe, a tenth of a point below zero. So negative 0.1 is their federal funds rate. And if we go down to zero or down further, well, we are going to certainly see that impact eventually in mortgage rates. It's not directly tied together, but nonetheless, it is going to be definitely felt there. So if we look at 2.75, and also mind you, I have had a 2.75 fixed rate on our property I've had, so it's not absolutely unrealistic. And we solve for, sorry, I'm putting this in the wrong place, 2.75, we solve for payment. Well, now we're at a 2204 payment, down from 2455 at 3.6. And if we amortize that real quick, first and foremost, look at this crossover. We're already just at 60 payment crossover. That's just 5 years in. So at this 5 years, where we go past this 5-year benchmark that we're going to look at these numbers for, you would already be at a position where the majority of your payment from there on out is going towards paying down your principal balance. And that only escalates, as you can see, the payoff and buildup of equity in your property. So regardless of what the market's doing, you know that the majority of your money is going towards like an automatic forced savings account, but much more so than at a 3 or 4, 5% interest rate. The majority of your money is actually going towards paying that money down, which is that balance down, which is incredible. So if we look at after payment 60, sorry, let's go ahead and again, one more time, put this at December 1st, and we look at payment 60, you can see that your totals total payments have been 132,000. That is down from 147,000, so 15,000 less than just even at 3.6%. And your loan balance at the time is 477,877. So you're also down $7,000 there. So not only did you save $15,000 in payments over 5 years, but you also have $7,315 more in equity. Wow. All right. So let's just say some things really go crazy and we get down to 2.25% interest rate. Let's go ahead and do that. Look at that. Your payment dropped already almost another $200, about $150. Let's go ahead and check out the amortization for this. Look at this. From day one, you don't even have a crisscross, because from day one, the majority of your monthly payment is going towards paying down your balance. That is just absurd. So again, it might sound crazy to look at right now in 2019, especially not too long ago, we were looking at higher interest rates. But if indeed, let's just say in a grim outlook, we do run into a sort of recession here in the coming 12 to 24 months. Again, historically speaking, we know that the Fed has tended to drop interest rates from 2 to 4%. And if we are already at these crazy lows that we are at right now, 3.6%, well, then what in the world, my friend, are we going to do? What's going to happen to interest rates if they drop that federal funds rate down to 0 or even beyond? And as we can see, it's not unheard of to do that. And by the way, Japan's not the only country also with negative interest rates. There are other countries that have done this and have actually maintained it for a great number of years, which is unexpected success in a lot of economists' eyes. So now if we look at, again, the 60-month payment, we can see the total payments have been $123,847, and the balance is $473,000. So $473,000, we're down. We have just under $5,000 in additional equity versus the 2.75 rate scenario, and we have paid $8,423 less in total payments over that 5 years than we did at 2.75 as well. And if we were really to compare this with the 4.94 scenario, which again, I remind you, this was not very long ago. In the last 2 years, we were at 4.94. And if we were to come down to the low twos, can you imagine, that would actually just been that 5-year period, we would have already seen over $70,000 in savings comparing the same scenario from the 4.94 to the 2.25. So just to give you a little bit of perspective, I hope that helps as far as what sort of a difference interest rates can make. And again, just look at this crossover here, because this is really one of the coolest visualizations you can see as far as how interest rates impact your wealth creation and equity buildup. Keep in mind that the lower the interest rate, the sooner that crossover and the larger majority of your payment is going towards principal. In fact, your payment is less, and yet you still have more of that payment, more money as a total going towards paying down your principal balance. So it's an incredibly powerful tool if you can get a low interest rate. And even just consider this, if you're worried about where the market is currently, well, let's just say hypothetically, again, we enter into a recession and you lock in a 3.6% or 4% rate today if you're getting some closing costs or something. Well, what's going to happen if, the market starts tanking elsewhere and rates start dropping? Well, even if prices were to drop, you could still refinance that into a lower interest rate and save money from your monthly payment and still escalate that equity buildup. Even if property values were to drop. So anyway, just an important principle to keep in mind. Hopefully this was helpful. If you found any value in it, please feel free to share it with other people or like and comment below. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.